Just some quick notes here about ethics in search and rescue and expected behavior. Stuff that I wish somebody had told all of us when we started. So, all right, why do we do search and rescue? Multiple reasons. That rush might be it at first, but that'll wear off. It'll wear off per call too, the longer a call goes on. Teamwork, being part of something, giving back to the outdoor community, the education and experience you can gain. We try to operate safely and train on how to operate safely. It can make you a better hiker and better climber. And then making a meaningful contribution, helping people, providing support to the professional responders that we work with, giving hope to families that are missing their lost subjects. Let me get something up here on my screen, sorry. Okay. Some overall principles of participating in something like this. That first one there is kind of scrambled. Protect the rights of, I don't know. Address the needs of everyone in need regardless of circumstances. Let's just go with that. So it is pretty easy sometimes, and we could joke about it later, but it's pretty easy to judge some of the people that were called to help. For their circumstances, for what got them into that situation, for anything else about their life. That cannot affect how we treat them and how we respond to their call, right? So we address the needs of everyone in need regardless of circumstances. Without any second point there, hostilities or controversies that are political, racial, religious, or ideological. It's just not part of what search and rescue is. We provide aid to those in need. Don't discriminate based on any factor: nationality, race, gender, religion, class, or political affiliation. And we only do it to help others. We're a non-political, non-military, we can't even work in law enforcement with some very limited exceptions. This is just strictly for helping people who need help. So some guidelines based on that stuff: respect everyone when you're working in JSAR. That goes for the law enforcement, fire agencies we work with, the federal agencies, other SAR teams. Sometimes that's a big one because they may have completely different attitudes about or ideas about how to do a search and rescue. They might send us into crappy assignments because we're the people from out of town, or vice versa. Anyway, treat them with respect. Try to get to know them too. Respect your partner and team, your search subjects, and then bystanders, whether they are associated with the call or not. Represent JSAR well with everyone that you see out in the field, whether that's on a training call or actual mission. Be flexible. Be open to completing what you're tasked to do, whether that's in county or a mutual aid outside this county. But if you feel it's unsafe, that's when you go back to your SARGAR and take that up the chain. All right, be safe, follow safety guidelines, follow everything about your training, understand that there's significant risk and significant liability in what we do. And the way we get away with doing what we do is by following our training. That's why the state law, that WAC 11804, is important. It both requires things of us, requires that we follow best practices in training, and it provides for liability protection and everything if we're safe with it, if we follow what we're trained to do. Report any unsafe condition or accidents. And the third one there, we're not law enforcement. We don't carry firearms. It's important for the search and rescue. Two things are important for the search, just to go off on a tangent a little bit here. For the community as a whole in the United States, one of those is that we're not armed, except in Alaska for bears. We're not armed, and we're not we're not a law enforcement agency. We don't function as law enforcement. As a matter of fact, if there's a law enforcement issue going on with a possible firearm or something, we will not be called in. We go when the scene is safe. And when it's still a law enforcement call. It's a search and rescue or death or whatever, but it's not an active search for a subject. So we're not law enforcement. We're not armed, and we walk all over private property. For example, we don't as a SAR community want to give the impression to the public that we are a force, that we're a threat to them or their property rights or anything. The second, completely off topic, but second important thing to the national SAR community is that we don't charge for what we do. That's important so that we have people that they're not afraid to call. So anyway, two important things to try to remember. You're part of this national SAR community, and not being armed and not charging for our services are important. Obey the law. Follow all state, local, and national laws. That includes not speeding to the calls. Respect private property. Obtain permission. So we try to do this, and we work with law enforcement to obtain permission. But there's, some property that's just, there's no house on it. There's no fence. We walk across it. We're following the river. We're following the road and trail and looking for somebody. We do it all the time. We try to get permission, and we respect no trespassing signs. We respect houses, all that kind of stuff, and obtain permission. Work with law enforcement to get permission. Don't do anything you're uncomfortable with in that area. Some other requirements: report illegal activity. So we are required as responders to report child or vulnerable adult abuse. If you notice that, if you think something's shady with a child or an adult that's the subject of the search, the best thing to do would be to take that to the law enforcement officer in charge of the mission and work with them to report that to the state. But it's a required reporting by law. Maintain confidentiality. Protect any information to which you're exposed, and we'll go over more of that in the social media policy. A couple of important things here. SAR teams work at the request and direction of a law enforcement agency only. That's the only time we go out in the field. We train on our own, but we don't take a call from a private party saying that their family member or dog or whatever is missing, and will you go look? We do get those calls a couple times a year, but we don't go. We only go on a state mission number. Those state mission numbers happen as a result of a law enforcement agency, generally the sheriff's office, calling and requesting it. So that being said, every one of those missions, it's not ours. We're there to help where there is a resource that was requested by the law enforcement agency running it, but it is not our call. It's not our legal responsibility to do the search. And the law enforcement agency takes that legal responsibility seriously. That's why they've called us to help with it. And so we have a responsibility to do what we were called to do. But it's not our mission. So it's not our mission to speak about publicly. It's not our mission to decide that we're going to change the strategy. It is that law enforcement agency's mission. Now they'll happily take our advice and concerns and questions, and our notifications of this is what we found, this is what we think you should do. All of the agencies we work with take that kind of input, but in the end, it's their call, it's their case to work, not ours. We're just there as a resource. Okay, personal accountability. We get into this because of patient abandonment. So you see where I'm going here in a second. SAR team members work voluntarily at the request and direction of team leaders, and the teams work at the request and direction of the IC, whoever the incident commander is, typically a deputy or a state park or state forest law enforcement officer. You all went through reading WAC 11804. You can read that again. Your physical and mental fitness is on you to assess and be honest about. So if you're not physically fit or mentally ready for a particular assignment, just say so. But once you take an assignment, you have a patient in your hands. Never abandon a patient. Once aid has been rendered, it must continue. This is doubly true for the EMTs on our staff, but it apply to JSAR as a whole and possibly to the individual, to you. So things you can do with the patient, you can deliver the patient to an equal or higher level of medical care. So you can hand them over to another EMT or a paramedic or a helicopter crew. You can have the patient refuse further care, so they get back to the trailhead and their family's going to drive them to the hospital. That's fine. All of that stuff should be documented. What you can't do is say, I've got the patient in a litter and I'm tired of wheeling them back to the trailhead and they're kind of being a dick anyway, so I'm going to leave them here. Or I think they can walk. I'm going to leave them here. Cannot do that. It's legal abandonment of the patient. I know it's an extreme example. We'd never do that, but keep the issues in mind. So I'll get to some more of that in a second. Remain personally accountable when you're on the mission. Sign in and out. That's obvious. Report when you're unable to continue or complete an assignment. There are assignments that they sound good back at the command post, but when you get out to do them, they're way too big and rough terrain and they're not going to get done. Or they're not going to get done thoroughly. Or they're something you could do if you had more people or more energy or something, but you just can't do it. Your team is not going to be capable of doing it. Don't go back to the command post and say you did that. Go back instead and say, or actually just get on the radio and say, hey, we need to talk about this assignment. We can't complete this. We're going to need someone else to take over for us, or split this assignment up, or whatever. Again, taking a search area where a missing subject could be, and searching part of it or searching it poorly, and then going back and saying that you did it, that could be abandonment as well. Okay, just be honest and have integrity about what you did and what you're able to do, and the person in charge of the mission will adapt their assignments. You won't have any kind of legal, or JSAR or anyone won't have any kind of legal issues with abandonment then, because we're just honest about saying what we did and what we're able to do. All you have to do, in essence, to avoid personal liability and to avoid JSAR liability for abandonment of the search is communicate. So you're out all night and you got to go to work at 7 a.m. Just communicate. What you can't do is leave an area unsearched, and the public expectation is that area was being searched, and it's not because you went to work. It's fine. Everyone's got other things they got to do. They got to go. You just have to inform the chain of command so that arrangements can be made to pick up what you were doing and finish it. Okay, so that's your only responsibility. You don't have a responsibility to stay till the search is over. You don't have a responsibility to find every person that may or may not be missing in the area where we're looking. You just have a responsibility to, with honesty and integrity, say what you're doing and do what you say you're doing. All right, that's all I have for this. Sorry, that one's kind of a downer. Maya asked if there's any refusal documentation. No, we in general don't have PCRs that have that, patient care reports that have that signature line for refusal. We simply would document it. We'd write it down in our patient notes, which in search and rescue, it's usually that right in the rain patient care notebook that has the vitals, blanks and stuff for taking care of a patient as an EMT or as a wilderness first aid or first aid person. So it's usually one of those yellow notebooks that we're writing in, and we just write a note at the bottom. Patient was released to family and went POV to the hospital, or said they were going to go POV to the hospital. That's all we do. And we turn that into the sheriff's office and they would write that in their report. Any other questions about these kind of legal issues and accountability and abandonment and all that?